Now we're getting into problem solving mode. That's why you really want to get professionals who are aligned, who are not fighting each other, and that's how you get better results. Welcome to Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind. I am Corey Shapiro. I'm helping you become more creative, less reactive in your divorce. In my day job, I am a divorce attorney. I wrote my book, Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind, also available on audiobook. And today we're talking about divorce judo. And this is so important, especially if you feel your soon-to-be ex is in that power position, that moneyed spouse, that, difficult, angry type person that is really causing such havoc. And if you feel small and insignificant and powerless, I want you to think about this when you're getting a divorce from a perceived, I put that in quotes, a perceived heavyweights. Because we don't fight fire with fire. That's the key. So if your first instinct is to fight fire from fire, think about this podcast and think about divorce judo. And this is what I want to help you understand. It's so important. Because if you do fight fire with fire, you're going to have collateral damage. It's going to be your family, it's going to be your kids, it's going to be your mental health, it's going to be your pocketbook, it's going to be your emotional health. So we got to step back and not get sucked into this fight, this street fight. The lawyers are going to want to suck you in because they're going to make money. Your spouses going to suck you into this fight because they're going to probably win it if you do it their way. So let's pause, let's step back, let's take a moment here, compose ourselves. And I want to show you how this is done in the real world. And just an example, and it's, the number's going to be a little different for everyone, but let's just go through it. So we're talking about temporary child support. That's child support that's paid before you get a divorce. And a divorce, it could take some time. Here in New York, a contested divorce can take years. So another reason why to think of this more in a smart way as opposed to fighting fire with fire, because these fights last a long time. So let's say your spouse makes $500,000. Let's say you're a stay-at-home spouse. You've been taking care of the kids. You used to work maybe 10 years ago, made a good living, but you took off time to raise the children. You never went back to work because your spouse is making a decent income for the family and things were good. But now you're in a divorce, and in your state, you learn that the child support only goes up to $183,000. That's what is called the cap. They're going to cap the income at $183,000. Now, they may go over, but it's discretionary with the judge, and it could be on a variety of factors like standard of living, the needs of the children, financial resources of the party. So let's say because you're dealing with a baddie of a spouse, they say, okay, we're going to pay the cap, but we want to impute to you $100,000 because that's what you made 10 years ago. And you're like, how am I going to make this $100,000? That's pretend money. You see how you're getting reactive and you're stressed, and maybe a part of you really wants to go, toe to toe, hire an aggressive attorney and then ask for the full amount, the full $500,000. You're like, Judge, I want you to deviate from that cap from 183 to 500,000, and there's going to be no way you're going to impute income. I mean, that's what you or your attorney is going to say, either in negotiations or in court. And, now you have two polarized positions. You have one who's basically saying, I'm only going to go to the cap, even though the income is much more, and we're going to impute someone who's never worked in the past 10 years out of the home. And now you're going to say, hey, I want to impute everything. And you have these two competing polarized positions. And this is what court is designed for. They're going to probably try to go to, in the middle somewhere. But can we take a step back and use our big brains and think about this in a more creative way? And I think we can. And just a couple of ideas to think of if we're using divorce judo is, one, you probably did not spend $500,000 on your lifestyle, if that's what your spouse made. Because first, you had to pay taxes. That $500,000 was a gross amount. So there had to be a net amount, and you can figure that out. Secondly, you probably saved some money. Maybe not, but you probably did. And then you can just look at the budget and figure out what was spent on lifestyle, and then that should be the cap. So for example, if you net out the taxes and then you look at the lifestyle and you take out the savings, you're like, you can look with like a reasonable degree of certainty that it's $300,000. That is what our lifestyle was. And if you bring that to the other side, you're not fighting because the numbers are objective. And that's why in a collaborative space, it's so wonderful, because you could have a financial neutral do this for you and educate the parties. One party saying to the financial neutral, hey, it should only be 183 and impute $100,000. And the other side saying you should use all 500. And then the financial neutral is like, well, why don't we look at your lifestyle? Why don't we look at the needs and figure this out in a better way? And didn't you pay taxes? Didn't you save some money? Let me see your expenses. Let me see your credit card statements. Let me see your bank statements. And they can go through all this and they say, it looks like it took about $300,000 a year to run your family. And now you got to use that money for 2 homes. So, very different situation now. Now you're like, wow, yeah, you used $300,000 on 1 home, but now you're going to have 2 homes for $300,000 net. What are you going to do? And you see how you start moving away from fighting and into problem solving, and you realize, wow, we didn't have as much money as I thought. And I know maybe in the future your spouse could make money, the financial neutral might say, but right now that's pretend money. And even if that's the case, who's going to take care of the children? They're still young. Now we're getting into problem solving mode. That's why you really want to get professionals who are aligned, who are not fighting each other, and that's how you get better results. So I hope this was helpful for you, especially if you're getting divorced from a brute, from a baddie, and who's making you feel so scared, so anxious. Don't worry. Things are going to be okay. It is tough. It is tough getting divorced from a heavyweight. But there's, more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. And if humans could figure out how to, deal with a bear, if we could figure out how to subdue a bear, we're going to be able to figure out how to subdue your powerful, and I put that in quotes, your powerful moneyed spouse, to make sure you get an equitable result. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Corey Shapiro. This is Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind, helping you become more creative, not reactive in your divorce.
Thank you for tuning in to the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast. We would love to hear your feedback. Send Corey an email to feedback@gettingdivorced.org. And if you've read his book, please consider leaving an Amazon review. This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.